Why don't we go ahead and get started? Thank you for your patience as we made sure everyone got into the room. Welcome to this meeting of the Senate Committee on Education. My name is Angie Taylor, and my name is Senator Angie Taylor, sorry, in case you didn't know. And I have the honor of chairing this committee, and we look forward to the business we have on today. We'll start at the top with our roll. Madam Secretary?
Senator Buck? Here. Senator Cruz Crawford? Here. Senator Doniate? Here. Senator Dondero Loop? Here. Senator Rogish? Here. Senator Titus? Here. Chair Taylor?
And I am present. Thank you so much. We're going to do a little housekeeping just to make sure, and I see we have a full room, and I think we have an overflow room, and want to just make sure we cover everything for everyone. Please silence your electronic devices if you would. If you'd like to testify, please make sure you've signed in at the table over there and provide a business card to our secretary if you have one. When testifying, please make sure that you turn the microphone on. State your name and spell your last name for the record. We want to make sure and get our records right. If you're a presenter and you have a handout, then you need to have given it to our committee secretary 24 hours in advance. And if you're bringing it here, you need at least 10 copies so they can be shared with the members of the public. We will have, I see there are a lot of people here. That means there will be a lot of people who want to comment, want to give their support, oppose, neutral, whatever the case may be. There's a lot. We may go with a minute and a half for everybody. I endeavor to certainly be fair and give everyone the same, so whatever time we have is going to be everybody. So we'll take a look at the time because we do have other business to take care of as well. Public comment can be provided in 3 different ways right here in person. It can also be provided in Las Vegas. I don't see anyone there now. And then it can also be provided by calling in. I'll give that number now for public comment, or if you'd like to testify on the bill when we hear it. That number, if you'd like to call in, if you'd like to participate audibly, that number is 888-475-4499, and the meeting ID is 892-3693-0268. Okay, then also as a reminder, we in this committee, in the Senate Committee on Education, we focus on the policy piece. We don't spend time on the financial piece. There's another committee that will take care of that. So we're looking at the policy pieces of this. Secondly, you'll see that committee members have laptops out. We have exhibits and so on in front of us, notes and what have you, bills. So please, as we look at our laptops, please do not take that as a sign of inattention or a lack of respect. Is that we're actually doing the best we can to follow along, and those kinds of things help us. I think that is everything. All right, so we will start. We are excited here to have our Nevada Youth Legislature, or NYL. We're going to have a presentation from the Nevada Youth Legislature. So if you would please come forward, those who are doing this presentation. Oh, they both come. Oh yeah, you have 2 people presenting? I'm going to give the history of the program. I'm the chair of the board. Okay, we want to have, okay, why don't you come, whomever else is presenting, come on up. Yes, whomever else presenting, come on up. And then if you can, that's not unusual that we have that. So remember, when you speak, make sure you say your name and spell your last name for the record. Okay, oh, no. It's okay. We may have questions, though, that you may want to answer. And just whenever you speak, we'd like you to please repeat your name. And sometimes it's hard to remember, and I'll help you with that if so. Please go right ahead when you're ready.
Thank you, Chair and members of the committee. Good afternoon. I'm State Senator Valerie Weiner, retired, and I chair, I'm going to get this, the full name, the Board of Directors for Corporation for Public Benefit for Nevada Youth Legislature. We call it the Nevada Youth Legislature Board. And it's such a thrill to be here appearing before you to talk about the NYL, share a little bit of our colorful history and some of our inner workings so that you understand that your program, the Nevada Youth Legislature, is working at the highest level, representing you with a smile and using their heads and hearts to get the job done on behalf of the youth in your district. I would like to say a hello from the current chair of the NYL, Sebastian Rios, who cannot be here today. He is representing our state as one of 2 delegates at the U.S. Senate Youth Program in Washington, D.C. So we looked at ways, and it just didn't work. And sitting next to me is Youth Legislator Kathleen McCarthy, who was the original proponent of the bill that was selected by the NYL that you will be hearing, and that is Senate Bill 254. So for a bit of NYL history, in 2007, I had the privilege of introducing this bill, SB 247, to create the NYL. It was a very simple 1-year program at the time. The only requirements were that the youth legislators would have a town hall meeting, and they would propose a measure for introduction as their bill. They only had requirement to meet twice before the session, and then we'd go through it again another cycle. Because the intention was to have the NYL present 1 bill per session, the unexpected delivery of 2 bills, because we had 2 terms, 1-year terms, so we created a 2-year term in 2011. The original name of the program was the Nevada Youth Legislative Issues Forum, and the next session we changed that real quickly to the Nevada Youth Legislature. We have 21 youth legislators, each appointed by their state senator, and they are the voice of that Senate district youth. This is a very distinctive opportunity for young people in Nevada to participate in one of the most distinctive youth leadership programs, not just in the country, but in the world, and I'll explain that. And so to maximize the program, we teach them how to lead and how to serve. Nothing about the program is partisan. We don't use the word politics or partisan. It is everything about service and legislative experience and honoring constituents. It's everything that we embrace in terms of representative government among youth. And it starts when they take the same oath of office that all of us took when we accepted the responsibility as senators. Since the inaugural training in 2008, it took a while to get this program up and running. We've expanded opportunities for our youth legislators and the people they serve. And during their 2-year terms, they have significant training opportunities, started with each August. The first August, the inaugural training is in Las Vegas, full day, and then the next August, the 2-day training here in Carson City, and I'll talk a little bit more about that one. And through the school year, particularly the first year, they have very high-level skills training, and that involves town hall meetings, constituent outreach, listening skills, presentation skills. They learn negotiation skills and testifying before a public decision-making body. And so in addition to the work we do in preparing the educational component of each training, we also are very committed to engaging you and your colleagues. And so we bring in teaching faculty that comprises a member from each caucus, and you lead discussion groups so that you can have that conversation with young people about those particular topics. And we also invite what we call our NYL alumni mentor trainers, and these are youth legislators who have completed the program, and we invite each one who's interested in helping create the continuity beyond the program, what happens next, and how can we demonstrate the value of the program. And these mentor trainers help also lead discussion groups and provide perspective to the youth legislators, because nobody is better at showing them the value of the program than those who come back a year later, 2 years later. One of our board members here with us today, Zana Kudalem, was one of our early graduates or alums, and he's been involved with the program, and now, of course, he's been on the board since we've had one and continues to seek out that appointment every 2 years. And so they also have outside assignments, and we kind of narrowed this down and refined it. And the outside assignments they now have, they have to conduct at least one town hall meeting with their constituents. So this involves the organization and promotion and so on. And so they provide a plan to us for review, and I'm privileged to comment and maybe make some suggestions, and then the report about how it went. So for that, each activity, they have a plan and a report. And they testify before a public decision-making body. This is probably one of the most revealing experiences they have, because almost every one of them in their report said, I didn't realize how amazing it is to have that kind of an impact on an actual board, and they listened to me and they wanted to know more. And I mean, this is really a revelation for most of them. They do outreach recruitment letters for us because no one is a better representative and a voice for the program than those who are in it. And so they provide that for review, and they send it to at least 3 outside the school campus organizations to let young people know about the program they might not have learned about otherwise. And this is the first year we've expanded it to 3, and that's really wonderful. And the bill drafting experience. The entire second year of the program is focused on the BDR process. And when they came here in August 6th to 7th of 2024 for a very comprehensive 2-day training focused on bill drafting, from idea formulation. We asked all of them to bring the idea for legislation that they would like to propose to the NYL for consideration. So we prepared them earlier so that they could process sooner. And this learning adventure includes that idea to drafting, to presenting, advocating for and garnering support for the fiscal impact and so on. And they learn about advocacy, and many of you have already experienced that today because some members of the legislature have already been visited by our youth legislators. They also learned about the precision of language in ways they probably don't learn in the classroom. Germaneness is a big issue that we talk about, and fiscal impact. So they get a lot of very high-intensity, deep dive kind of training to prepare them to come up with their idea for their own proposal for legislation, and within weeks they need to submit that to us so that we can create the roster of bill proposals so that in September, when they came back together, that was September 26th, we had each youth legislator come to the witness table, present their measure, and answer questions from their colleagues, just like they would if they were in a hearing. At the end of that meeting, they, after careful consideration, the youth legislators voted it from 21, and all 21 contributed a proposal, from 21 down to 7. At the October meeting, those 7 were back at the table providing more detailed information about their proposals, again, more questions. And so at that October 22nd meeting, it was reduced from 7 then to 2. So in November, November 20th, the youth legislators had a more expanded experience where the proponents, we had 2 proponents, the top 2 measures supported through vote, and then we also had expert witnesses, and they came to the table and answered questions that they made presentations, and then they took positions on the measure. And so Youth Legislator McCarthy will explain when I complete, I'll pass the torch, the measure that they selected. This was the proposal that she had brought. And so one thing that was really wonderful about that we added, we're constantly in real time learning how to improve the program. And one of the examples that we prepared for that particular meeting was, for the first time, we invited, after they picked their bill, we invited all the youth legislators to consider making an amendment. We would accept up to 10 amendments to the proposal so that it truly would be the NYL bill, not one youth legislator's bill, that moved forward. It's that youth legislator's proposal as amended by her colleagues. And so that created the opportunity for true NYL ownership, personal investment in the NYL bill at a level we've never had before. And so of the 7, there was discussion, and they processed the way often legislators do. They selected 3 to include as refinements in the bill that you will hear in a few minutes. To give you a little perspective, you've heard bits and pieces, to give you perspective on the merits and value of this program that's your program. It's the Nevada Youth Legislature, a program of the Nevada State Legislature. This is the only program, I've done a lot of work, this is the only, to figure this out, but it's the only youth leadership program in the world that statutorily provides a legislative measure that would be introduced and processed by an elected body. I know in the United States, I worked with NCSL, there's no other program here. I learned that the Commonwealth countries, British Commonwealth countries don't, and we learned through other experiences in this building that there are no other countries that have this kind of a program. And so of the bills that the Youth Legislature has brought, 7 NYL sponsored bills that you have introduced at the request of the NYL have been passed. Also, and signed into law. Also, we strongly encourage that when youth legislators proposals that they bring with full heart and head, when they bring it to the table with the greatest expectation that theirs might be selected as the one, we strongly encourage that youth legislators work with their own appointing senator and the assembly members. That's where we ask them to start, to see if they would be interested in introducing the measure because it wasn't selected. We have had 7 youth legislators do that. One of those all of them passed, but one of them took 2 sessions to pass. That was on financial literacy. It was better the second time around. So we've had great success with their taking that initiative to go forward. We do have, in this session, Youth Legislator Rigonti, who is sitting with the youth legislators, AB 167, has been introduced and referred to the Assembly Committee on Judiciary. So we have one moving through the legislature during this session as well. And so I'm grateful for all the ways that the NYL enriches the lives of our individual youth legislators and makes available the demonstration for other young people in our state that youth do have a voice in representative government in ways that they may have never imagined possible. And I'm grateful that after our youth legislators historically have exited, we provide them with a heartfelt, in fact, I've already done it, because we've had our last official meeting required. We encourage them to consider becoming a mentor trainer for the program, and that we bring them into every training based on what they feel they're most comfortable helping with. And also, alums and current youth legislators who are seated here have represented the NYL in a very amazing way, and this is why I say only program of its kind in the world. In the last 2 or 3 years, we've had a distinctive opportunity where our current youth legislators and alums have come to the building to greet and host delegations from other countries. Initially, I thought they were coming to the legislature to see the Nevada Legislature, and by the way, we have these young people too, you might want to chat with them. And I learned after the second visit that that wasn't the case. So the first visit was Serbia, the second visit was 15 delegates from 14 countries, the third visit was Papua New Guinea, and the fourth visit was Vietnam. So this is a pretty good representation of a global experience. What I learned from our program facilitator, Tina Ashdown, is that no, Senator, they actually came to the legislature to meet with the youth legislators because they wanted to learn about the program. That's so extraordinarily humbling, but they wanted, some reached out to find out more information about how does this happen, how do you make it happen. So our young people learned social hosting skills and how to be phenomenal representatives of the program, of the legislature, and of the state of Nevada. So I wanted you to know that they're out there representing all of this body in a profound way. We also maintain contact with many of our alums, and they are wonderful in explaining the impact of the program still many, many years later. You may want to know what happens with this board that I chair. We founded who organizes and makes sure everything is there's a continuity to what we do and how we oversee the program. In 2011, we founded the NYL board, and that was SB 237, and we oversee policies, practices, and finances of the NYL. The 7 board members appointed by the Legislative Commission every 2 years. Many of us have already reapplied for an additional appointment because we love this program a lot. And the composition is very representative. We made sure that when we created the board that each chamber of the legislature is represented. When possible, the alumni, the NYL alumni, and at least one member of the public. And we meet at least twice a year. Currently, we have also legislators, current legislators, former youth legislators, also connect with the program in a very generous way by providing donations to the scholarship program that we have created. Through the years, we had lesser scholarships, but we had more of them currently. So we range from $500 to $2,500, and currently we have a $2,500 scholarship that engages legislators, 2 former youth legislators, staff. I mean, everybody is generously contributing to this $2,500 scholarship, and I'm grateful that I can contribute a $1,000 scholarship. I'm gratified about all the people who contribute to the success of the NYL. It takes, that takes a village. That's an understatement, because it takes so many people in this building sitting where you are and sitting behind closed doors who don't get credit. All of you don't get the credit you should get, but I'll name the capacities that we're blessed with and the resources from the research division, the legal division, audiovisual public hearings teams. We also have the staff in Las Vegas that accommodates us down there, the staff up here to make sure that everything works beautifully and that we connect, and the participatory engagement of legislators. You all come with smiles. You come with an eagerness to set a great example for our youth legislators. Nobody can do it better than you, and we appreciate that. And of course, our alums engage at a high level too. So that's a snapshot of the NYL, and I'm so grateful that you are still helping us plant seeds to grow these youth leaders. Your input and your influence and your role modeling is essential to the success, and your support for the program as we continue. Again, we've been around since 2007, and we are just grateful that you continue to put a smile on the face of the Nevada Youth Legislature. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Senator, and forgive me for not recognizing you. Your reputation precedes you, but I never had the honor of meeting you. So just thank you so much for your work, and thank you for spending your time here. Vice Chair, Madam Vice Chair.
Thank you, Chair. And I was just going to make some of the same comments. Senator Wiener, it's always a pleasure to see you in the building. Thank you for your, I think, at least 20 years of service someplace along the line in this building. And we appreciate you. And for those of you that don't know, she has been a tireless advocate for basically our middle school and high school students. So thank you very much. I appreciate the overview and the history. I know that these students have learned a lot. We continue to be amazed by all of them and by your program. So,
no, it's your program. Excuse me for
Well,
correction, but it's your program.
it might be now, but I have not forgotten the inception. I think I came the following year after. I wasn't here in 2007. I think I came in 2008, and so then I've been involved or watched from afar since. So, just as a side note, we've known each other since water balloon days. So I've watched from afar for a lot of things. So anyway, thank you very much for being here, and thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. I don't see any questions here on the history, so we will go right into we'll open the hearing.
Madam Chair, if I
Yes.
may, Chair, not Madam Chair, Chair. I will be sitting back here if there are any questions that you have of me or throughout the remainder of our time before you. Again, thank you all for the privilege of being here and for honoring us for Nevada Youth Legislature Day. It's always a joy. And thank you for, again, role modeling so beautifully for our youth legislators from afar and up close and personal. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Senator. It was an honor to have them on the floor with us, and we look forward to this. What a great opportunity for the students. So I will officially open the hearing for Senate Bill 254, and we will turn it over to Legislator McCarthy for the presentation. Thank you so much. Please go ahead when you're ready.
Kathleen McCarthy for the record, MCCARTHY. Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Kathleen McCarthy, and I am the Nevada Youth Legislature representative from District 6. Today I am here to talk to you about SB 254, which is a measure that is very close to my heart. I have been thinking about this opportunity to address you all for a long time, but especially over the past few weeks. In those weeks, I have also done a lot of other things. 2 weeks ago, I took the ACT. Last week, I had a physics test. I learned about the Prohibition in history, and yesterday I planted halophytes for a research project. Every day I get to take advantage of educational opportunities that are presented to me at school, and so do most of my peers and the greater youth of our state. But some of them don't. As the U.S. Health and Human Services reports, 4.7% of teens aged 12 to 17 qualify for illicit drug use disorder, which is the habitual consumption of illicit drugs. That's an estimated 10,000 of the youth of our state. Meaning 10,000 children sit in classrooms, and instead of being able to give their full attention to lessons, they are dealing with the side effects of habitual drug use. More than that, NCDAS reports that 46.6% of all high schoolers have experimented with drugs at least once by the time they graduate high school. If you apply that statistic to my fellow youth legislators, 10 out of the 21 of us would have used illicit drugs by the time we graduate. If we think greater, each youth legislator represents between 26 and 46,000 adolescents. Therefore, using the lesser side of that range, over 10,000 adolescents in the state of Nevada have tried illicit drugs by the time they're 18. Drugs are an issue that have permeated their way deep into our state and are taking their toll daily. Teens who are addicted to drugs are more likely to have mental health problems, poor family relationships, low academic achievement, and limited social lives. They are at an increased likelihood to be truant, commit crimes, and die at a young age. They are exceedingly likely to be drug addicts throughout adulthood, as 90% of Americans who meet the clinical criteria for addiction started using substances before the age of 18. And yet, we are lacking proactive and protective measures for handling drug use in our state. That is what SB 254 is. It is a way to start identifying individuals who are using drugs at a pivotal time in their life, a time when intervention can hopefully get them onto a better path and set them up for success. The bill, at a minimum, requires that the State Department of Education establish a policy for suspected drug use in students. The policy could then be adopted by all public and private schools in the state. The bill also outlines procedures and details to be included in the policy. The procedures describe the steps the administration would follow if a teacher suspects that a student is using drugs. Teachers may have such inklings by observing signs of impairment in students, changes in behavior, or truly seeing a student with drugs in their possession. In any of these cases, the teacher would notify their admin. The student in question would be given an evidence-based mental health screening questionnaire that would help to determine if they are using or if other mental or physical health conditions are contributing to the behaviors that are consistent with drug use. The administration would then schedule a parent conference where they, the child's parent or guardian would be present, and if they choose, another individual of their selection. At this conference, all parties would get to explain the situation. Then the parent would be given resources to help them and their child move forward. These resources could include, but are not limited to, family counseling resources, treatment center contact and enrollment information, crisis lines, and specified drug resource groups or therapy programs. The exact language and final decisions of the policy would be up to the Department of Education, but the specifications in the language of the bill my fellow youth legislators and I have created attempt to preserve the legislative intent of the bill. That intent is that we find a widespread, reliable network to identify pupils who are struggling with addiction. We want adults in the lives of Nevada youth to be notified. This way, they will be able to take the necessary steps to get the child to stop using and set them up for success in the long term. Over time, if this measure is passed, we hope this intervention could help curb the number of drug overdoses among adolescents in our state. We want this policy not to be disciplinary, not to get the child in trouble with the law, but only to help them get the resources they need in their life to stop using drugs. to tip the needle in the favor of the pupil going on to have a thriving drug-free life. Briefly, I want to highlight some of the specific parts of the bill that accomplish this intent. We included, one, that an individual of the pupil's choice could attend the notification meeting. The pupil would be given the opportunity to decide if there is a teacher, counselor, or adult at the school that would make them feel more safe and comfortable during the meeting, and that member could be present during the meeting. Two, the possibility of follow-up with the pupil to ensure that they are receiving the assistance they need if there is continued concern by the witnessing staff members or anyone else on campus. Written record of each report to be made to allow for statistical data to be made from the reports. This data can be used to continue to build the wealth of data we have on the climate of drug use in the state of Nevada. In the future, the number of reports could be a justification for expanded drug resources and funding for those resources in this state. To ensure the privacy of students is being protected, the bill details that the reports stay contained within the school's records. Specifically, in Section 2, subsection 4, letter E of the bill, it states that the reports pursuant to subsection 1 are confined and are not of public record, so they will not be available to anyone outside of the school system. This is to ensure that the issue does not affect their transcript or record, so that it cannot limit them from educational or job opportunities. To further this, the reports must be disposed of by the time that the student graduates, plus 30 days, or once they have been reported to the legislature in the form of data. Additionally, the framework for this bill was a large consideration as we worked on it. As a collective, the NYL wanted to use the school system, which is an existing sound network of capable adults to help identify children who are experimenting or addicted. Schools have similar policies and procedures for issues other than drug use that students may be struggling with or affected by, including bullying, cyberbullying, suicidal ideation, and parental abuse. While the reporting of these examples are mandatory, it still parallels the suspected drug use policies that we are hoping to result from the NYL bill. Some concerns have been raised about adding to the workload teachers face in their classrooms. Yet with the existing foundation for different types of reporting, there is a gap for handling suspected drug use. We believe that there can be the seamless addition of this policy to fill that gap. At the same time, the inclusion of this policy gives teachers an avenue to handle drug use showing up in their classrooms. I have spoken to multiple teachers who have dealt with drug behaviors or students physically having drugs in class. The teachers do not have a set way to handle these incidents, which ultimately causes disruptions and distractions in their classes. With our bill in place, teachers will have a consistent strategy for handling such incidents and have peace of mind in knowing that the student is getting access to resources and support. Additionally, teachers are an additional set of eyes on students. We can hope that parents would have the ability to spot signs of drug use in their children. For some, but that's not the case. For some, they may be unaware of what drug use looks like. For others, they may see their child less than their child's teachers. Either way, the numbers tell us that many parents are not picking up on their children's drug use. From a survey of almost 3,000 parents conducted by the Hazelden Betty Ford Foundation, it was found that 59.2% of parents of youth ages 12 to 24 said that they are not at all concerned that their child might be possibly using or abusing drugs, despite government surveys showing that illicit drug use among teenagers remains high. On average, surveyed parents could only name 2 out of 38 commonly known warning signs or indications that the child is using drugs, and approximately 1 in 5 parents admitted that they would not know where to turn for help if their child was struggling with drugs. This is why SB 254 is so crucial. Many parents are not recognizing the signs of drug use in their children, and this bill can give them a hand to do that. On a final note, before we get to the questions, I would like to tell you about 2 people in my life who motivated me to pursue this legislation and ultimately lead it to be the NYL bill. The first is Lauren, who was one of my 8th grade classmates. I didn't know her well, and I doubt she even knew my name, but almost daily she would sit behind me in our attendance lines for PE. By 7 a.m. every day, she was already high on drugs that she took from her mom. Her mom was a drug addict, and I knew this because she would whisper to her friends about taking pills and cigarettes from out in the open in her house, and nobody stopping her. And though she was whispering, it was not quite enough that myself and other nearby students couldn't hear. To my knowledge, the school never intervened, even though she was clearly struggling. The second is Daniela, a childhood friend of mine. We lost touch in middle school, and the next time I heard her name was in a news article reporting her death. She overdosed on narcotics laced with fentanyl, which were obtained from a 32-year-old man who she was sending sexual content as a means to pay for these drugs. When I heard of her death, there were still pictures of the 2 of us dressed up in costumes hanging on my refrigerator. I didn't know what she was like at the time of her death, but I have heard she was a very sweet girl, yet it was clear to her classmates that she was struggling with something in the months preceding her death, but again, no one intervened. Neither of these girls know it, but through their experiences, they are helping to prevent others from going down the dangerous path they did. My fellow youth legislators heard stories like these and others during my testimonies on this bill. They learned about the widespread effects of drugs and graciously accepted the challenge of fighting youth drug addiction with our bill. Please help me give these girls' stories and the stories of all teens whose lives have been altered due to drug addiction an impact. That impact starts with SB 254. That impact is in your hands. Thank you.
Thank you, Legislator McCarthy. We do have some questions, and I'll look to the committee members. We'll start with Senator Danyate.
Thank you so much, Chair, and good afternoon. And first of all, before I even go to my questions, I just want to say that you did a tremendous job, and your parents should be very proud of you. I also want to just thank the youth legislators for bringing this bill. I know that oftentimes in past sessions, right, we want to do things that obviously make an impact, and clearly many of you have been affected or know this issue personally, either from someone you know, and so I just want to thank you for your advocacy and for being a part of this process, so your parents should be proud of you as well. The main concern that I have with the proposal, now pivoting towards the bill, is I have a fear that I understand the premise of what we're trying to accomplish, right? If someone is suspected of drug usage, that we're providing the level of support, right? And that we're able to educate them, we're giving them the resources, and we want the parent to be involved in that process. However, the bill in Section 2 specifically mentions exhibiting signs and behaviors of someone of drug usage. And so what I'm fearful of is that this could lead to profiling of students that perhaps are exhibiting behaviors and have no connection to drug usage, right? And so I want to avoid the potential profiling that could occur from students. But the main thing that I'm most curious about is what happens in a scenario, and maybe you guys have talked about this amongst yourselves, but we have to live with the reality that parents work 24/7, especially in our community, right? Some of them work graveyard, they don't work day shift, and so what happens in a scenario where the parent can't come to meet with the administrator? Would we suspend the student? Is that the intention? Or, I mean, if you're not able to meet with the parent in a timely fashion, how are you able to ensure that the student is being kept with the support that they need?
Sorry. Thank you so much for your question.
Please just state your name again for the record.
Oh,
it's okay.
Youth
No
Legislator Kathleen McCarthy for the record.
Thank you.
For the first bit, I want to touch on real quickly. Profiling, I'm hopefully interpreting this right, you might be worried about racial profiling, or you might be worried about any other issues, because it's not meant to be a punitive measure, and it's not going with a disciplinary policy, so it's not going in the three-tiered system of parent-teacher conference, then suspension, then possible expulsion. It's not in the disciplinary policy. If it is found that the student is not taking drugs, they can explain the situation. It was a mistake in reporting, either because of, unfortunately, an issue with behavior, or a mental health issue, or something like a concussion, which can present similarly to drug impairment, or a learning disability, or other possible neurodivergence of the student. In all of those cases, as long as it's come to the conclusion that the student is not on drugs and they are okay, then the report will not need to be continued, and the student is free to continue with their regular life, and it will not go on any disciplinary record. So there is no harm in a mistaken reporting, or unfortunately, as much as we hope for it to not happen, a racially or for some reason someone being reported even though it's not drugs. For the second question about if the parent is not available for a parent-teacher conference, I do know that in some cases it can occur over the phone call with the parent if they cannot come in. I do not know the, unfortunately, current policy for Nevada schools. If a parent does not respond to emails or prompting of a parent-teacher conference, how they move forward. Unfortunately, I assume that might mean they have to wait for the parent. If there is no reason to believe that the parent is going to step up, then it's a concern of, is it because the parent's too busy, or is the parent being negligent? And if the parent is being negligent, then it can be a bigger conversation on, does the parent need to other bodies need to be involved to make sure the parent is stepping in. Hopefully that answered your question.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, Senator. Vice Chair Dondero-Loop.
Thank you very much. And just to build on the senator's question, if when a principal or a school admin asks for a parent conference, that's called an RPC. So it's a required parent conference. So that parent is required to come in. So that can happen maybe in a different way, but the principal, there are two at this dais right now that are one that used to be and one that is. So, so my question is, when you have, and thank you for your testimony, my question is, when you have a student who is in this required parent conference or conference situation, and these records are being maintained, right? And you have a witnessing staff member, means a member of the staff of the school who witnesses a public, the pupil exhibiting signs. Is that same staff member in this meeting?
So the meeting would have
I'm sorry, your name. That's okay.
Youth Legislator McCarthy for the record.
Thank you so much.
The meeting would have, at minimum, I believe, 4 people. It would have the administrator, if it's the principal who has available time or whatever administrator, the witnessing staff member, which is the teacher that originally came in with the concern, the student, and then a parent or guardian. If both want to be present, I'm sure there would be no issue with that. And then it's specified that if the student would like, they can also include a different teacher who's on campus who might make them feel safe. Maybe it's a mentor, a teacher they're very close to, or a counselor if they want. So that could be a 5th person in the room.
Okay.
But yes, the witnessing
I
staff
appreciate
member is the
that
same.
because I think that some people might have a concern that, if the child reports all this and then it follows them, and while it says the records are not public records, we wouldn't want anybody in that room, of course, to reveal that information. It would be confidential. And a follow-up, Madam Chair, if you don't mind, if this particular conference warrants further information or someone them to get this person help, then how does that happen? So we have this conference, we actually find out that this child, this student needs help. And so what happens? Take me through what happens next.
Unfortunately, drug resources, Youth Legislator McCarthy for the record, unfortunately, drug resources, especially for teens in the state of Nevada, are not very extensive. So there's not one set place that they should all be referred to. Again, that's hopefully what the reports can be for, maybe to merit increased funding of more programs in the future. All the parents will be given some form of resources for crisis centers, therapy, whatever it is, and it is ultimately on the responsibility of the parent to move forward with that, which is why, again, the intent is pretty much to notify parents because a lot of them are in the dark, and we're hoping that the majority of parents are able to step up and use the resources they're given and whatever else they can find to help intervene on the child's behalf.
I appreciate that. Thank you, because we know that many of these students may be under 18, which means their parents would have to be involved and they would have to make those decisions to move forward. So I appreciate that. Thank you very much, Youth Legislator McCarthy, and thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator. We're going to go to Senator Titus. You have a question?
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. And first and foremost, Youth Legislator McCarthy, thank you very much for being here. Well done. And it's not easy to be in front of a body that is then going to ask you questions. And so thank you for holding on that and remembering to say your name each time. Many of us forget that all the time. So I have a couple questions, if I might, Madam Chair. First, specifically to the bill, Section 2 of the bill says that the department shall adopt an evidence-based policy concerning the notification of the parent. So are you aware of the evidence policies that are out there? Do they exist? Do other states do this?
I don't believe, Youth Legislator McCarthy for the record, I don't believe any state has exactly this specific policy, but the evidence-based statement was added when we added the evidence-based mental health screening questionnaire, which there are lots of options for that, which the Department of Education could go through and weigh the options. Some are for adults, some are for teens, some are for mental health only, some are for drugs, and pick which one they believe is best. And all of those, some of them I know specifically have been adopted in the state of Wisconsin for school policies for mental health screenings, and they're evidence-based in that they, have been tested to prove very aligned results with what is happening in the students' lives. And by using those questionnaires, we're having more certainty of what's going on in the student's life.
Madam Chair? So thank you for that. And so the intent, I assume, with this bill is for as the department develops this, it will be all school districts, all 17 school districts would be held accountable to implement that. At all school grade levels, are you looking at throughout the school districts, all the different schools?
Youth Legislator McCarthy, for the record, yes, we're looking at all schools. The bill does say both public and private. All schools would be able to use the policy once it's written in by the Department of Education, and they can follow the steps. I find it hopefully unlikely that any elementary school would have to use it, but technically it is there for the concern. So all of the schools can use the steps. They, once the new policy is there, it's what they should be following if the problem comes up and a teacher is concerned about that, but I assume it will be more geared towards high schoolers and middle schoolers, but yes, it's available for every school, both public and private.
May I continue? So is there any concern about liability of someone who fills out this report, or is there any protection?
Youth Legislator McCarthy, for the record, the reports are made to be confidential, the names of the students are to be redacted, and the data collected and given to the Department of Education will not have any names or any identifying information about students, as well as if the legislature requests to see the reports, it will not have any identifying information. Because it's not a disciplinary act, it will not go on the child's disciplinary record, so it's not on their transcript or disciplinary record that they might have to or it hopefully would not go on there as long as everything is carried out as it should be. Like I said, section 2, subsection 4, letter E says that the reports are confidential and not public records, so they should not be anything that can be searched by employers or anyone, but I am open to making the verbiage on that more specific to make sure there are no loopholes that can be found to make sure that it is not coming back to limit the child later in life.
And I was more addressing that. Thank you for that. The liability of somebody who reports.
Oh, sorry, I misunderstood Youth Legislator McCarthy, for the record. Originally, we were interested in making this a mandated reporting, similar to child abuse is mandated reporting on teachers, but because we went the route of the Department of Ed creating the policy and then the policy being there for schools to adopt, it is technically not mandated that the teacher do the reporting, so they cannot be in trouble if they don't report, and if they do report, we are hoping that the safeguards that it will not follow them on their record or anything protects them from liability, because the child's life shouldn't be impacted by it on their record. It should only be benefited from the policy because it's, getting them the resources and help that they need.
Thank you, because where I was going with that is that wanted to make sure that in some districts, some poor employee didn't recognize that they didn't recognize and there was an overdose, they didn't report or whatever. I wanted to make sure that the non-reporter wasn't now in trouble because you should have reported and it's your fault now.
Yeah, Youth Legislator McCarthy, because it's not a mandated reporting policy, it's just a policy, the teachers are not in trouble if they do not report, and I talked to the teachers union to decide on that. So. Yeah.
And last question, if I might, sorry to continue here. Back to the bill, and looking at the same section 2, going down to number 2, and if you're looking at the actual bill, I'm not sure how it's numbered there, but at the actual bill it would be line 33 on page 3 of the bill, but I'm not sure how it falls with you. It's a line that says Part C2, A, B, and then C. Destroying a report filed pursuant to paragraph E of subsection 1 not later than 30 days. So none of these reports are all paper reports, could be destroyed. There's always concern about people's data in a computer system somewhere. So none of this is uploaded anywhere on a computer system. It's only a paper form and then it's destroyed.
Youth Legislator McCarthy, for the record, that is a very good point. It doesn't specify on here paper, so it could be beneficial to specify, but yes, it's supposed to be completely just kept on paper, stored, and then destroyed. However they choose to destroy it, and that's the 30 days after graduation, so it's done with the student or once the data has been collected from that report.
Yeah, the question is a process question, because I know your intent is to not to have this information follow the student. And so I was just curious about how that process is. Where is this stored? How is it destroyed? I mean, do you put it on a zip drive and then jump on it and then destroy it? I just worry about data collection.
Youth Legislator McCarthy, for the record, different schools might want to do different things if they have the capability to store it paper or electronically. So if it's of importance to all of you that it be paper so that it can be destroyed and never recorded electronically, that could definitely be an amendment or change moving forward.
So thank you for all those answers, and thank you for being here, and thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Rogich? Thank you for sharing the water with her.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you for bringing this bill and highlighting this important issue. As we discussed privately, I was concerned with regard to the questionnaire, and especially since you may have the student there alone being handed a piece of paper and not having an understanding as to answering these questions and what the impact could be. And so as a result, having an advocate there, considering having an advocate that is unaffiliated with the school district or with the particular school, keep in mind that it's important, because you have some children that there may be a language barrier. There may also be children with special needs, and so they do not, or they could be in the elementary school, surprise to all of us, but that could happen. And so regardless of the age, I think it's important to have an advocate present so that they understand exactly what the questions are asking and exactly what it means when they provide an answer. Okay, thank you.
Youth Legislator McCarthy, for the record, I just want to reiterate that the questionnaire is intended, unless the policy is not followed properly, to never go anywhere except the school, so it should not come back to affect education or employment in the future. But if it is important to you all that the student have an advocate while also filling out the questionnaire to make sure they don't put anything that could later limit a career, such as mental health issues, maybe in the military, is there a concern for mental health issues, whatever their future career may be, that it doesn't affect them, then adding an advocate that the child chooses for the questionnaire section as well could be considered.
Thank you, Senator Rogich. Senator Cruz Crawford?
Hello, Youth Legislator McCarthy. Fantastic job answering all the questions. I was really like, who's gonna help her answer the questions? And you're really holding your own and doing a great job. I did have a couple of suggestions if you are going to go into the amendment process. Someone, I don't know who, some legislator last session passed a concussion protocol. Then it's caused a lot of undue stress at my school, because we get a kid that just barely bumps comes into the nurse's office and they have a questionnaire, and depending on their answers in the questionnaire, they have to stay 30 minutes, and this is like the littlest bump, right? So they lose instructional time of like 30 minutes every single time. And one of my concerns is with the questionnaire, the students say yes, 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 to everything. Because when an adult is asking you questions, a lot of times that's where they defer. Yes. So I actually flagged for my, this addresses Senator Rogich's question, for my first safety assistant or who's ever working in that health office, that if they're flagged on Infinite Campus for ELL, so that English is not their first language, then they need to get someone on campus that speaks their native language. And then also anyone that has an IEP, they have to go to their IEP teacher of record to come and ask those questions, because they know their mannerisms and know them better than anyone else in the building. So that's been helpful for me. And then I did want to address the protocol that we already do have in CCSD in regards to substance abuse. Unfortunately, elementary school does deal with substance abuse, a lot of times vaping. And what they're doing is they're sometimes taking their parents' vape that actually is marijuana, and they don't know that. And so, as I'm an elementary school principal, and when our students have any type of substance, whether it's a cigarette to a vape to maybe some pills, it doesn't happen very often. So, but it does happen. And we do have a policy that we've already adopted within CCSD. It's Regulation 5141.1. So I would look that up to see how that kind of aligns. And then immediately we call our, we have what's called a Substance Abuse Awareness Program, or a SAP program. And the students are required to take classes with their parent or guardian, and there's virtual options as well. And so it's been very, very helpful, because a lot of times the parents are also in denial, right? Like, not my baby wouldn't do that, or and so it helps both of them recognize that there is a problem and get resources so for that. So I just wanted to make you aware of first of all, that concern with the questionnaire, right? And to make sure that we're supporting our students that have English as a second language, and that our students that have IEPs, and then also the second part, which is the program and policies that are already adopted by CCSD, and see where those can align together. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Block?
Thank you, Chair Taylor. What if the student who's being reported on is found to have, say, drug paraphernalia, or quantities in which, dealer quantities, or however you say that, would that exempt them because they've been reported? Would this exempt them from all disciplinary actions? Or, because I know traditionally, if they're found, students are found, it could lead to suspension or expulsion.
Youth Legislator McCarthy, for the record. If they're found with levels that are equivalent with what policies already say should end up disciplinary, then I believe we would cede to those policies. But the bigger thing is the question of law enforcement and when they would have to be involved. And I believe, depending on the quantity, then it might be a question, but that might be an issue for school police if they're found with the drugs on them, similar to if a child is found with a weapon on them on campus, instead of just the suspected or symptoms, or maybe a single vape, but instead, cocaine or an equivalent that is in their possession. And I'm apologize, I don't have all the details on that, but I believe then school police would have to be involved, and they would know the steps to move forward for that.
Yeah, typically the student would be suspended or expelled if they'd found, any quantity. I just use that as an example. But thank you so much for being here. You're so brave, and you're handling this all on your own. So hats off to you.
Thank you, Senator Buck. Senator Daniante?
Thank you, Chair. I just had a quick clarifying question. Going back to Section 2 of the bill that deals with the signs and symptoms of students that are suspected. So this is, just to confirm, it's not just the confirmation that you have drug usage or exhibiting signs and symptoms, it's the allegation as well, correct? So I'll give you an example. My eyes get red. I have really bad allergies. A faculty could say, Fabian's eyes are really red, therefore he may be suspected of drug usage, so now we're going to RPC him to go through this process. So how far are we going to require the signs and symptoms of individuals that we deem to qualify for this specific encounter, I guess would be the question.
Youth Legislator McCarthy, for the record. Again, there are unfortunately a lot of different issues or things that children could be struggling with that could appear similar to drug use. I myself have had concussions, My pupils were very dilated, I will say. They looked pretty huge, and that is similar to some drug substances. So if, for example, it were to happen to me and they call me in, or my parent gets a call that I'm getting this parent conference for talking about suspected drug use, I believe they immediately would be like, my daughter has a concussion, I can send you a note from a doctor. Allergies, you might not have a doctor, but hopefully a simple explanation of this is the issue, support from your parents that they believe it, or if it really is just allergies and the concern is so bad, I don't believe drug testing would have to be involved, but if there really is a mismatch where the teacher is insistent and the child is not, it could be a choice of the parent to determine that. They've been notified at that point, and then it's the conversation with their child. Well, they would know if their child has allergies, hopefully.
Thank you, Chair. The only thing that I just wanted to mention is, I guess the concern that I have is, how do we avoid the unintentional incidents of reporting students that by no means are guilty, right? And so how do you, I understand the process of screening children and making sure that folks are being provided services, but are we causing harm by referring students that are just going to school and being good kids and have allergies, right? Like, I guess the question is, to what extent are we going to be qualifying this incidence? Because then we're just going to start referring cases and it's going to become more than an issue that it needed to be. And then if you do the screening, but you find something else, right, on some other issue, maybe it wasn't drug usage, but now we're elevating the concerns of other issues that are not relevant to this bill. So I guess that was, how do we ensure that it's more on the confirmation that we're seeing the actual drug usage versus alleging that someone's under it? So thank you.
Youth Legislator McCarthy, for the record, from what I know, my mom was formerly a CCSD teacher. Whenever a new policy is put in place at a school, a teacher has to be trained on the new policy. The training can vary a lot. Some schools might be very in-depth and be like, we're going to have a 2-hour meeting where we talk about this policy, and some might just email it out to staff. But whatever it is, the teachers will be informed on what the policy is and should be trained on, here are the signs and symptoms of impairment. And again, they might align, unfortunately, with other conditions, but I would hate to use the word guilty. They're not guilty of anything, even if they are on drugs, because this isn't a disciplinary policy. It's only an interventionary measure. And if that intervention leads to the conclusion that they have no problem that is more than needs to be solved with like nasal spray, then they can be let off. And if it is a problem that might be mental health based and it was only behavioral symptoms, then hopefully the parent has been notified that the student has mental health problems that might need to be addressed, not just drug use, or not even drug use at all, but it is still the parent learning what the signs might be that their child is exhibiting.
Thank you, Senator. I do have just a couple of questions, and I'm going to concur with my colleagues. You're doing an awesome job. It is not easy to sit there and even make the presentation, and then to answer all the questions. So thank you. You should feel great about that. There's a rumor that your dad is in the room. You should be proud, Dad. Okay, just a couple of questions. We talked about, you mentioned that it could be at any level, right? Hopefully not much elementary and so on, but if a student, let's say, goes through this, and let's say at middle school, and then they go through the process, and the idea is after they graduate, then that record is destroyed. Does that record follow them from, say, elementary to middle, or from middle to high?
With the Youth Legislator McCarthy, for the record, with the current language, it does not follow them. Maybe a concern is, well, that they have an incident in middle school and then again in high school. It would be beneficial to know they had the incident in middle school so that it hasn't been addressed. But I also think moving it between schools would probably constitute electronic versions of the records, which has been expressed that that's a concern. And also, if the child did it in middle school but has worked really hard, or even elementary school but has worked really hard to get clean, that shouldn't show up, in my opinion, on their middle school. And then the admin, the teachers, everyone at their middle school knows that they have this, history of being on drugs, and that sets them up for a very, it gives an impression that they might not want to give. So pretty much how it works is they get a clean slate every time they move from schools, to help with confidentiality and so that they hopefully can leave it behind if it isn't something of the past.
Okay, thank you for that. And my last question is, I know it's a staff member who can identify this behavior. Is that any staff? Office, janitorial, cafeteria, teacher, whatever, right?
Youth Legislator McCarthy, for the record, it is any staff member. It could be a lunch lady, it could be a janitor. At my school, the hall monitors are like friends with everyone. We all know them by name. It could be someone there that expresses a concern, anyone who is on staff at the school, and they would be the witnessing staff member that's in the meeting.
Thank you for that. I really want to commend you for putting in the person who the student feels safe with, can be in that room with them, because sometimes that can really just make the difference. So thank you for considering that. I think that's very wise. Okay, seeing no other questions, and thank you for your presentation. So this is what happens now. Now we'll ask you to go back and have a seat, and then we'll open it up for people to testify in support or in opposition or neutral. And then you'll have an opportunity, student legislator McCarthy, you'll have an opportunity to come up and just make some closing comments if you like, okay? We have many people here that want to testify. I certainly recognize that. We're going to limit testimony to 20 minutes on either side of the issue, 20 minutes in each of the three. So if you want to make sure you get your time in, come up now. Anybody who wants to testify in support of this bill, please come forward. Please come on up. In support of Senate Bill 254. Please go right ahead.
Good afternoon, Chair Taylor. My name is Jeff Horn. I'm the Executive Director of the Clark County Association of School Administrators and Professional Technical Employees. I'm testifying in support as an individual today, not as my current role. Just so you're aware, in the committee, I'm a member, long-term member in recovery from addiction since 1988. Addiction is a devastating disease that affects many people, families, and destroys lives. As the principal at Green Valley High School, in my role there for 11 years, we created a drug testing program there to identify kids who were involved with use, not as a punitive issue, but as something to help them seek treatment, and it's still in effect today. I can tell you that many lives are destroyed based on addiction and the use of drugs. And in my role as a school associate superintendent with the Clark County School District, I help open Mission High School, which is the only public recovery high school in the nation. And it's a Clark County School District school. And its goal is to support students and families wrapped in the disease of addiction. The students that go there are there to embrace recovery and wrap themselves in love by the support of the staff that are there to help them through their recovery process and to get them a diploma in their hand at the end of the day. So I'm in support of this bill and the idea behind it and identifying kids to help them through recovery process. And as a person in recovery, I truly support that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Horn, and congratulations. That's good job. Anyone else here in Carson City who would like to testify in support of Senate Bill 254? Okay, seeing none, I don't see anyone there in Las Vegas. AVS, is there anyone on the phone line who would like to testify in support of Senate Bill 254?
Thank you, Chair. To testify in support of Senate Bill 254, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers in support at this time.
Thank you so much. And now we'll open it up for anyone who would like to testify in opposition. Anyone who would like to testify in opposition to Senate Bill 254, please come forward at this time. Again, we'll limit this to 20 minutes, and then, of course, no longer than 2 minutes per comment. Thank you so much.
Hi, Chair Taylor, members of the committee. My name is Ashley Kennedy, representing Clark County, and I want to commend our youth legislator. She gave a great presentation. I was watching in the overflow room, and this isn't an easy job, so she should be proud. Clark County is opposed to SB 254 as written. We have some technical considerations. I'm sure the committee is well aware that the county is responsible for child welfare services, including child protective services that investigates reports of child abuse and neglect. We do have some concerns with the proposed questionnaire, and we hope that we can define kind of the contents of what should be in the questionnaire, and then ask that the questionnaire be evaluated by folks who are qualified to do so. However, our biggest concern is in subsection 3, which requires a school to file a child abuse and neglect report if a child is using a substance that a parent or guardian provided access to. First, we are concerned with the broad definition of substance and recommend it to be narrowed down and further defined. CPS investigates child abuse and neglect. The use of nicotine is not something that is typically investigated. Secondly, we would recommend defining what providing access to means. Currently, furnishing a child with alcohol or a controlled substance would result in a report for abuse and neglect that a school would personnel are required to report. We're more than willing to work with the sponsor to address our concerns and make this something workable for us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Please go right ahead. State your name for the record.
Good afternoon, Paloma Guerrero, Paloma-Guerrero, Clark County Public Defender's Office. We did speak with Youth Legislator Kathleen McCarthy right before the hearing, and we do commend her for an amazing presentation, and we're looking forward to working with her and the entire Youth Legislature team about addressing the issues that we have. Our concern is how this information could potentially lead to be used by law enforcement. We know that's not the intent of the bill at all, but the way it's currently written, it's pretty broad, and that's why there needs to be some safeguards included in order to protect not only students but their parents against any sort of criminal charges based on any information that was gathered. Children, like adults, have Fifth Amendment rights against self-incrimination, and if we are compelling children to fill out this questionnaire, they need Fifth Amendment protections. So any information received cannot be used against them. And also, similarly with their parents, any involvement of CPS can possibly lead to criminal abuse and neglect charges against parents, which we also want to see avoid as a result of these questionnaires. As this bill is written, a child could fill out this questionnaire with trusted adults, teachers, and administrators, a questionnaire that's just meant to help them, but then end the day with their parents possibly in custody or with criminal charges. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Guerrero. Please go right ahead. And if there's anyone else in Carson City who would like to testify in opposition, please come forward now. Please go right ahead.
Angela Knott from the Washoe County Public Defender's Office. ANGELA-KNOTT. While we understand that this bill is coming from a good place and we do support the spirit of the bill, like the Clark County Public Defender's Office, we must oppose SB 254 as it relates to the questionnaire. From a defense perspective, this is akin to a Fifth Amendment constitutional violation. A person, children included, are protected against self-incrimination. Requiring a student who is merely suspected of being under the influence to fill out a questionnaire without counsel or a parent present seems to be against our constitutional protections. A minor in possession, consumption of alcohol, or consuming a controlled substance are all potential delinquent acts that could be alleged against the student based on observations or assumptions of school officials. We are open to further discussions regarding amendments that can provide safeguards against using these questionnaires in a criminal setting for both the students and their parents. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Knott. Seeing no one else here in Carson City and seeing no one still there in Las Vegas, AVS, we're going to see, is there anyone on the phone line who would like to testify in opposition to Senate Bill 254?
Thank you, Chair. To testify in opposition to Senate Bill 254, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Awesome, thank you. Hello, my name is Yesenia Moya, Yesenia-Moya. I want to begin by recognizing the good intentions behind SB 254, but I am calling in strong opposition. Addressing substance use among young people is an important issue, and I appreciate the effort to ensure our students receive the support. However, this bill, despite its intent, could cause more harm than good and create barriers to the very help it seeks to provide. I myself am a product of CCSD and have also seen how substance use in my communities has, separated families, but mandatory parental notification policies assume that all students have safe and supportive home environments. The reality is that a lot of our folks do not. Some students are in foster care, others are in unstable or abusive households, and forced disclosure could expose them to harm, rejection, or even homelessness. Instead of encouraging students to seek help, this bill could cause them to stay silent out of fear of what might happen, especially if it's reported without their consent. Like, what is more concerning is the role that this bill would play in the further criminalization of Black and brown youth. For example, in Section 3, when schools become spaces of surveillance rather than support, young people of color who already face disproportionate rates of discipline and police involvement are more likely to be funneled into the criminal legal system instead of being given the care they need. Additionally, mandatory reporting in these cases raises serious concerns about family separation, particularly for immigrant and low-income families. Instead of helping students, this bill could lead to more young people being removed from their homes or entangled in the systems that don't prioritize their well-being. Requiring school staff to report students in this way changes the role of educators and mentors into one of surveillance and enforcement, and schools should be places where students feel safe to reach out for help, not spaces where they are afraid of punishment or forced intervention. There are better ways to support young people. I myself am a practitioner of harm reduction, and as such, addressing substance use should be rooted in mental health resources and trust building, not in policies that risk pushing our students further into crisis. Again, I urge you to reconsider the potential harm and not support SB 254. And I'm here to support. I can help support. As I said, I am a practitioner of harm reduction and transformative justice. There are other ways to address substance abuse. And
caller, I'm so sorry.
look
You're over time now. Can we, if
Oh,
you have
thank
other
you.
comments, please send them in to us. Thank you so much. Thank you for calling.
Of course.
Mm-hmm. AVS, is there anyone else
Chair,
on the
there are-
phone line? Oh, I'm sorry.
Oops, I apologize.
Go ahead.
There are no additional callers at this time.
Thank you so much. Now we'll open it up for anyone who would like to testify neutral. Any neutral testimony on Senate Bill 254, please come forward at this time. Okay, seeing none here and none in Las Vegas. AVS, did anyone call in during that short period of time?
Chair, there are no callers at this time.
Thank you so much. Student Legislator McCarthy, please come on up. You can have any closing remarks, any closing comments you'd like to share.
Youth Legislator McCarthy for the record. I want to thank you all for the opportunity to present the Nevada Youth Legislature bill. I want to let you all know that we are open to making amendments, especially pursuant to changing language relating to the questionnaire. Some examples of the questionnaire that I was looking at are, I'm sorry, I need to find it. One is called K6, is the short form for Kessler Psychological Distress Scale, is an evidence-based mental health screening questionnaire. It only asks 6 questions. 1, how often have you felt nervous? How often have you felt hopeless? How often have you felt restless or fidgety? How often have you felt so depressed that nothing could cheer you up? How often have you felt like everything was an effort? And how often have you felt worthless? These questions are similar to questions that me and other peers at CCSD schools get on something called the Panorama Survey, which we are required to fill out without any consent or any additional information being given to our parents. So it similarly aligns with that. I agree that that might not be the best questionnaire, and other ones might be more adept, but also could not incriminate the child, but put them in a position where they are saying things that could potentially come back and be an issue. So it can definitely be specified what language can be used in the questionnaire, and if parents or other individuals need to be notified and the child given counsel in the questionnaire. Other than that, I again want to urge you to support this bill, because drug use is really hurting our communities, and it is something that we need to stop. So thank you.
No, you've done an amazing job. Thank you so much. And this is what you do. You connect with those folks who had others, and you work on it. Okay, you work on it with them. That's what all of us do, right? It happens like that's what all of us do. So please just know you did a great job. Thank you so much. Okay, we'll close the hearing now on Senate Bill 254. And again, thanks to all of our students in the Youth Legislature. We thank you so much, Senator. Thank you so much for bringing the legislature here and your board members. We can't thank you enough. What an impressive group of young people. We are in good hands. We are in good hands. Thank you so much. All right, we will move on and to our agenda. We have a presentation that's coming forward. You're already coming forward. All right, from the Nevada Association of School Boards. We look forward to this, and thank you so much, Mr. Harris and friends, for coming forward. Please state your name for the record, and I see there's a presentation on the screen, and go right ahead when you're ready.
Good afternoon, Chair Taylor, members of the committee. My name is Mike Walker. I'm the president of the Nevada Association of School Boards, otherwise referred to as NASB. Also presenting with me this afternoon will be Rick Harris, who is our executive director, and Nicole Flangus, who is working with us and Tom Clark Solutions on important items that we are advocating for. So we have a high-level presentation about who NASB is, what we believe in, and so the Nevada Association of School Boards represents all 17 school districts of the state. That's urban, rural, big, small. We make sure that the voice of all elected and appointed representatives are heard, as well as we put the needs of students at the forefront of all that we do. We advocate for a strong public education system. We want to train leaders and ensure success for students through effective governance. So we envision a state where public schools are recognized as the foundation of a free and democratic society, where local citizen governing boards are fully vested with the means and best interests of the students. And so basically, when you think about a school board, that is the first level of civic responsibility in our communities. We are the neighbor, we're the person that they're stopping in the grocery store, as Senator Taylor knows. We are their true representatives, and so we believe that that's important, and we also believe that we need to make sure that those representatives have the skills and the knowledge necessary to effectively lead our school districts. So we believe in good board governance and stand ready to support any of our school boards through professional development, mentoring, and advocacy to improve the outcomes for students. And that takes a lot of different roles. So for instance, in this position, I've mentored newly elected school trustees. I also represent our organization on the State Board of Education. And so we are a small but mighty team, and our mission is to make sure our students have the best education possible. So we believe that school boards should be elected by the community. They serve a vital link, as I said, between the community and public education. And I think in today's environment, it's very clear that the public feels that these are their schools, and they are. And so our school boards need to be responsive to the needs of the community and approachable. And so I think Rick is going to take us a little bit deeper into the work we do.
Hello, Rick Harris, for the record, Executive Director. I'm really excited today to talk about professional development and mentoring, and I'll be quick. We'll start with professional development and thank you for allowing us the time today. I'm really proud to share our professional development with you. What we do is we guide trustees as they move through the trustee process and help them grow and develop. The heart of our professional development is NRS 386-327, which is a required professional development the trustees have. And we start with that, making sure that there's always workshops available for them to take yearly in those areas. Excited tomorrow, we have one, there's 50 people signed up. So we're really proud of that. We also come together once a year for our annual leadership conference, have some wonderful presenters at that conference. And each year it's a dynamic conference. Not only do we learn there, but we network there, we celebrate there. It's a fabulous tradition, and we have like 98% of the trustees statewide attend that each year. And then we also provide what I call the advanced group, certified public official certification. We have built this, and I'm really proud of this, with a spin, the emphasis on school trustee leadership. So not only do they go through the certified public official requirements, but we also require them to do a step above, I call it, and do mentoring and or specialized projects for their districts. So that's really, and we celebrate them each year at our conference that have finished that. All of this work is guided through our guided principles, which is really about making sure that workshops are around adult learning and it's meaningful and it has a strong impact with each trustee. Then I would like to talk real quick about our mentoring program. We believe that we shouldn't take this for granted. It's a structured approach. You know, you just kind of assume, right, that people are going to be mentored, but we don't want to make that assumption. So what we do is we assign trustees, veteran trustees, such as Mr. Walker, to new trustees, and we support them as they go through the process. And they can do this in different ways. It's between the trustee, the mentor, and the mentee. And then lastly, I'd just like to share with you that we really value networking collaboration. We have a really positive culture between us. We don't always agree, and that's what makes it fun, but we can have spirited debates, and at the end of the day, we all feel like we've grown together. It's not uncommon to have a trustee, like tomorrow I know I'll have a trustee that has been a trustee for 10 years sitting right next to a newly appointed trustee that's been there for 10 days, but yet they'll connect and they'll help each other and learn together. So I'll let Nicole talk about art advocacy.
All right, hello everyone. My name's Nicole Flangus for the record, and I'm working on behalf of NASB today and with Tom Clark Solutions. I want to touch a little bit on the advocacy and policy that NASB does. So representing all 17 counties means that NASB comes together to create constructive solutions that will represent all 17 equally. We're trying to make sure that we're representing the initiatives indiscriminate of the size. It's more about how can we improve Nevada education overall. And we serve as that unified voice, and we appreciate doing it via the trustees. We basically, our role is also to meet with all of you on behalf of K through 12 education. And we think of ourselves as a valued resource to all of you. So whenever you're looking at bills, if it's going to affect schools, we want you to think of NASB and us as an extension of NASB as we're serving as their capacity right now. We want you to reach out and consider them as you introduce those bills, because we know so intimately what it's like to introduce those bills in those schools and how it's going to affect those schools directly. So we hope that we think of you as that resource. As for some of our legislative priorities, we wanted to kind of go over those. So as you see them, you know where we stand. Rural school construction partnerships is one of the biggest ones. We see a lot of our schools dealing, or a lot of our counties dealing with the fact that their schools are outdated and they're trying to raise the funds in which to build new schools, but they don't have the capabilities that some of our larger districts have. And because it's been so far stretched across the counties, it's now become a whole statewide issue. So as you see rural school construction come up, know that we are in talks about how to improve that and in talks on how to come up with a solution that's both from the county themselves and a partnership with the state to fund those solutions. Another big priority of ours is student and staff safety. I know that's a theme of a lot of our bills this session. So as you incorporate new policies that deal with student and staff safety, we hope that y'all think of us as a core person to talk about how to make those initiatives both feasible but also really effective. Universal school lunch and breakfast is a passionate priority of our organization. It's something that we were advocates for the prior session, and we will continue to be advocates for. The outcomes when you can feed your students, whether or not they have this proven notion, just the idea of being able to feed them, supply the nutrients, and know they always have a meal at school, that supports student outcomes and student success. So that continues to be a priority of ours. We also have an emphasis on local control of key issues. We like to believe that our elected trustees are really great experts in what they need in their areas. And so we hope you think of them as that, and that when you're looking at things that affect local control, you make NASB part of that conversation. Finally, a big legislative priority is to advocate for every kid in every county. We're always going to do that. We're going to continue doing that. And so once again, we thank you for allowing us to do this presentation. We are here to field questions, and we have trustees from all 17 counties today to field questions throughout the building. But we just wanted to introduce ourselves and make sure you know a little bit about what we do.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Flangus. President Walker, in final comments, or that's it, and we can certainly see if anyone has any questions.
So Michael Walker for the record. You know, I served with you on NASB, so we've had these conversations together. And one of the things that we've really brainstormed over the years is to become a force of advocacy in the state. So we have such strong representation and such experience within our organization, and it's finding the avenue to get here and to truly advocate for public education. And Tom Clark Solutions has really helped us with that. We have a fantastic group of trustees, a very small but mighty staff. I think you would think Rick Harris has a team of many with the amount of work he does, but it's pretty much just him and a part-time finance guy. So I thank you for this opportunity to give us a voice and to allow us to partner with you as you are shaping educational policy that is going to impact all of our schools. So thank you for your service, and thank you for the partnership.
You're very welcome, President Walker. Do we have questions? Questions, anyone from the committee? I do have a question. You mentioned we certainly recognize that capital is a big challenge for many of our districts. You talked about partnerships. What does that, kind of describe that? What does that look like? In particular in those rural communities, but I know it's an issue in Clark as well.
Absolutely. So thank you for the question, Michael Walker for the record. This is where we have gone to the drawing board, and we are really looking at your expertise as well. I think the reality is truly every school district is dealing with old, outdated, in a lot of cases dilapidated buildings that are still being used to educate children in. And so when you look at the larger counties, Clark, Washoe, there is typically a mechanism to stay up on this. Even Carson City, to a very limited capacity, but all of us have these struggles. When you look at the price of construction, if you look at wages for any of the workers that are required to make these improvements. And so the reality in many of our rural districts, they don't have the bonding capacity to build a new school. Sometimes they don't have the bonding capacity to replace a roof on a school. And so even if they were able to get a bond passed through their community, they don't always have the way to pay that back. And so what we're asking for policies and systems that are in place to allow rural districts, to allow school districts in need to apply for state funds, and they could be through grants that are paid back in a way that is not prohibitive to their budget. Maybe it could also be, do you want to weigh in here? I'll let Nicole weigh in.
Nicole Flangus for the record. So this is a conversation that has started since the previous session. And so there is this capability by which counties are able to, raise their tax cap and provide. And once they've put that initiative forward, we're trying to look at some partnership that would involve, once that tax cap is met, also incorporating bonding capacity, but also incorporating funds from the state. So a three-tiered kind of partnership program where the individuals buy in through their counties. The bonding capability is another component, but what we're trying to advocate for is some avenue in which we just bridge that final gap. That's a conversation still to be had, but it's something that we're working on this session.
Thank you, Ms. Flangus. Appreciate that. A question from Senator Titus.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And so I'm embarrassed to say this, but I represent 6 of the 17 counties, and you said you have 17 counties represented. I don't know all the school board members from the 6 counties. So may I ask the ones that are from the following counties, Douglas, Lyon, Churchill, Mineral, Esmeralda, and Nye, to please stand up? Well, thank you. I have faces now. I don't have names. So hopefully I get to meet each and every one of you, and thank you for being here today.
Michael Walker for the record, and I will just say that there are a number in the spillover room as well, so hopefully you get a chance to meet them as well.
Thank you, Senator. Okay, seeing no other questions, thank you so much. Thank you for the presentation. Thank you for, oh, I'm sorry, Senator Donante. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Really quickly on the legislative priorities of universal school lunches. So it's my understanding that many of the members that you guys are here today are trustees and members of the school boards. And so you may all be more in the weeds than we are on this issue. But in reference to universal school lunches, I know that we had the allocations to provide for this type of service up until the 2024 academic year, if I'm correct, from my recollection. Are we now noticing an uptick in students that are skipping meals and an uptick in student balances? Is that, talk to me about some of the unintended consequences of cutting off the funding that have now resulted at the local level and why you guys are prioritizing this.
So Michael Walker for the record. You know, my day job, I'm an elementary school principal. And it became very obvious during the pandemic how much our families were counting on our schools to provide nutritious meals to students. So in Lyon County, school principals went to their schools 3 days a week and provided meals for students. So we went and got a district Yukon, filled it up with meals, and met kids outside of our schools and made sure that they had breakfast and lunch. And if we knew they needed something else and we had a way to get it to them, we did that. I think that we have seen students have started to really rely on meals at school. There was one time a couple years ago we had a late start. And when you have a late start, lunch was going to start 30 minutes later. So we're like, yeah, we'll get the kids in, do attendance, get the day started, then we'll just go right into lunch. Well, we had a number of meltdowns because we didn't have breakfast for them. Because in addition to that lunch, they were counting on that breakfast. I think that the situation has gotten worse as we look at current times with the price of food and the economy. There's a lot of families that are hurting, and I think one of the things that you don't hear about when people say not all students need free meals, you have to remember that there's a component of pride. Families aren't advertising that we're struggling to feed our kids. And there should be, in the United States of America, there should be no child going hungry. And so those universal meals will allow students to have the fuel they need to get through the school day, learn, and have a healthy life. I mean, we know, and I know some people complain about waste with school meals and what kids like and don't like. At least we know they're getting nutritious meals. And that's not always the case when kids, the family's too proud to apply for free and reduced lunch, or the child doesn't want to get free and reduced lunch. When they start skipping those meals, you see behavior spikes, and you see a lack of performance.
Chair,
Sorry, Nicole Flingus for the record. I just want to follow up that we can reach out to the districts that have been tracking that data too. And if we have some statistics, I can follow up because I know that's going to be a hot button issue. So I want you to know I will follow up on the data analytics for you, okay?
Ms. Flangus, just before you jump back in, Senator, if you wouldn't mind sending that to our policy person.
I would be
with
happy
Jennifer,
to.
you get her information, and then she'll make sure the committee gets it. Okay? Thank you so much. Senator?
No, thank you. And that was going to be my follow-up question in terms of what are the guardrails that you would recommend, because there's this notion of food waste, right? You know, I was a proud recipient of, I qualified for free lunch. I took advantage of it 100%. My mom was she's a grocery store worker now, but during the 2008 recession, she took on a second job because she was a cafeteria lady. And she would complain to me of all the food that she had to throw away because it was school district policy that she couldn't donate it. So do your members as school board trustees, do you have programs already with food banks to donate foods? Is that a common practice, or is that uniformed across? Like, I guess, and maybe if you can talk about what guardrails we need if we were to institute the policy back.
Michael Walker for the record. I think that when you look at the waste of the nutrition programs, a lot of it has to do with federal guidelines and regulations. And there's a formula of those school meals that you must have a number of components in every meal. And so say like you hate bananas and that's the only fruit or vegetable available when you come through, you're going to get a banana. And those are federal guidelines that we are required to follow with the programs that we get grants from. So I think that's one component that those changes are out of our control. In our school, we have, to avoid waste, we have share tables. And so if a child doesn't like their banana, instead of throwing a banana or an unopened milk away, it goes on the share table, because there are students who want that snack or want that milk or even that second milk for the day. And so those types of programs are in place, but I would say largely the issue would come down to federal guidelines and our requirement to follow those with our nutrition programs.
Thank you so much. And I do know I got a head nod from the president in Washoe that they do have a program to donate food so that there wouldn't be any waste. So thank you. Thank you for that. Other question? Oh, yes, go ahead. Senator Cruz Crawford.
Thank you so much, Chair. I don't want to go on a rabbit hole about this, so I'll just take about 30 seconds. So I'm a school principal within CCSD, and I wanted to clarify some misconceptions. We have a very strategic process within the first week where a cafeteria manager is trained to make food in small batches. We have hot and cold items, and we rotate through so that there's no food waste. A cold item might be cereal. We start switching to that once we see, and then we can use that the next day. There's not a lot of food waste. I think that's a misconception. I think anyone that is voting on this issue needs to come to a school and see how it's done. There's a share table that's allowable. They can't take food out of the cafeteria. So the kids in first grade get the same amount of food as the kid in fifth grade. And so when a student in fifth grade is more hungry, right, they go to the share table. And if cafeteria managers have some of the strictest training standards, at least within CCSD, they're scared to, even when I'm like, oh, just give them no, and I'm their principal, right? And so there is very, very, very little food waste, and I don't think you should be able to vote on any of this before you step foot into a cafeteria. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Other questions? Okay. Seeing none, thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming, for sharing with us. We appreciate it. And thank you to all of the trustees who came in. That's my people, so. All right, now we're down to the last item on our agenda, and that is public comment. If you would like to make public comment and you're here in the room, then please come forward. You know, you'll have 2 minutes. If you're listening in and you'd like to call in, that number is 888-475-4499, and the meeting ID is 892-3693-0268. Anyone else, please come forward. Go right ahead, sir, when you're ready.
John Eppolito. There have been at least 3 data breaches affecting Nevada K-12 students. 2017, Edmodo had a massive data breach where the personal data of Nevada students, including their student ID numbers, was placed for sale on the dark web. 2019, Pearson's Ames Web data was breached, affecting over 650,000 Nevada students. That data included names, birth dates, and student IDs. 2019, School Messenger, where the directory information and student ID data was breached. In Nevada, it's the student ID that is used to track kids from pre-K to college, workforce, and/or jail via Infinite Campus and Empower. Some call it cradle to grave. In 2020, CCSD was the victim of a ransomware attack. They refused to pay, so as promised, the hackers published Social Security numbers, student grades, and other private student information. 2023, a hacker went undetected in CCSD's computer system for a few months. The hacker asked the district for 1/3 of Jesus Jara's annual salary to delete the student profiles they had saved. Again, the district refused. So, as promised, the hacker posted 200,000 student profiles, which included student profiles or student photos, birth dates, student numbers, student IDs, emails, language, race, ethnicity, household and outside household relationship, and contact information. There was at least one lawsuit, class action lawsuit filed. School districts always downplay these incidents. ProtectNevadaChildren.org.
Thank you, Mr. Eppolito.
You're welcome.
Please go right ahead.
Steve Dolan, Incline Village, Friends of Third Creek. Chair Taylor and committee members, thank you, first of all, for having the unique group of the Nevada Youth Legislature. I mean, if it's unique in the world, I learned today, and I think that's fabulous. I think it gives a lot of hope for the future of Nevada, so thank you for that. I have been aware of Mr. Eppolito's work for the past at least 10 years in Washoe County, and he's identified this data issue and fought for it, for a long time. I've testified in the past when my children were going to school from Incline at the county, and I'd love for you guys to continue to pay attention to where that data goes. Some of the questions today with your youth legislature were very pertinent regarding that, and I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Dolan. Seeing no one else here in Carson City and not seeing anyone in the room in Las Vegas, we will go to the phone line. DBS, is there anyone to call in for public comment today?
The public line is open and working, but there are no callers at this time.
Thank you, AVS. Okay, committee, thank you very much for being here. We will have our next meeting on Monday, March 10th, 1 p.m. right here. We are adjourned.